Twin sisters were pregnant together, but their delivery revealed a shocking surprise. Twin sisters Abby and Gabby thought sharing their pregnancies would be the ultimate bonding experience, until their simultaneous delivery in the same hospital room revealed a devastating family secret that changed everything they thought they knew about their lives. When the babies were born, the shocking truth about their father's identity and their mother's decades-old lie tore their family apart and forced them to question everything they believed about love, loyalty, and what it means to be sisters. What the DNA test revealed will make you gasp and prove that some family secrets are too explosive to stay hidden. Get ready for a story that will leave you speechless and make you believe in the power of destiny. Stay with me until the very end because this story will restore your faith in humanity. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and comment your thoughts throughout the story. Your engagement helps us bring you more incredible narratives. Abigail Abby Richardson adjusted her position in the hospital bed for the 100th time that morning, trying to find comfort despite being 9 months pregnant with what felt like a baby determined to use her ribs as a personal playground. In the bed beside her, her identical twin sister Gabrielle, Gabby, was experiencing similar discomfort, though she was handling it with the same grace she'd brought to everything since they were children. "I still can't believe we're doing this together," Gabby said, watching the monitors that tracked both their contractions and their baby's heartbeats. "When we were kids dreaming about our futures, did you ever imagine we'd be having babies at the exact same time?" "I imagined we'd do everything together forever," Abby replied, reaching across the small space between their beds to squeeze her sister's hand. "Having babies together feels like the most natural thing in the world." At 28, the Richardson twins had lived parallel lives in ways that amazed everyone around them. They'd attended the same college, chosen complementary careers, Abby as a pediatric nurse and Gabby as a child psychologist, and even gotten married within 6 months of each other to men who had become best friends. "How are we feeling, ladies?" Dr. Sarah Martinez entered the shared room with the confident energy that had made her the most sought-after obstetrician in the city. "Are we ready to welcome these babies into the world?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Abby replied, though her grip on Gabby's hand tightened involuntarily as another contraction built in intensity. "The timing couldn't be more perfect. You're both progressing beautifully, and your families are gathered in the waiting room like this is the social event of the year." "Our husbands are probably pacing holes in the floor," Gabby observed. "Marcus has been nervous about fatherhood since the day we found out we were pregnant." "And Jake has been reading every parenting book ever written," Abby added. "He's more prepared for this baby than I am." Dr. Martinez checked both women's progress with the efficiency of someone who had delivered hundreds of babies but still found joy in the miracle of new life. "Ladies, I think we're looking at babies arriving within hours of each other. Are you sure you want to share a delivery room for this?" "We've shared everything else our entire lives," Abby said without hesitation. "We want to share this too. Besides," Gabby added, "we want our children to be born knowing they have a cousin who's practically a sibling. This bond starts right now." What the sisters didn't know was that their decision to share this most intimate experience would lead to revelations that would challenge everything they believed about their family, their identity, and the bond they treasured since birth. As labor progressed throughout the afternoon, both women found strength in their shared experience. When Abby's contractions intensified, Gabby coached her through breathing exercises despite her own pain. When Gabby felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of becoming a mother, Abby reminded her of all the ways they'd supported each other through every major life transition. "Do you remember when we used to pretend we could feel each other's pain?" Gabby asked during a quiet moment between contractions. "We weren't pretending," Abby replied. "I still feel it when you're hurt, even when we're in different states. That's what's going to make this so special. Our babies will have that same connection. They'll be more than cousins. They'll be like siblings, just like we planned." By evening, both women were in active labor, their husbands present and supportive, their parents anxiously waiting for news of their first grandchildren. The delivery room buzzed with excitement and anticipation as two families prepared to expand simultaneously. "Abby, you're going to start pushing with the next contraction," Dr. Martinez announced. "Gabby, you're about 10 minutes behind your sister, so you'll get to watch her show you how it's done." "No pressure," Abby laughed despite her exhaustion. "You've got this," Gabby encouraged. "We've got this." What followed was the controlled chaos of two women bringing new life into the world while supporting each other through the most physically and emotionally demanding experience of their lives. Abby delivered first, a healthy baby girl with dark hair and her father's strong jawline. "She's perfect," Jake whispered, tears streaming down his face as he held his daughter for the first time. "Isabella Rose Richardson," Abby announced, having chosen the name months earlier. "Bella for short." 20 minutes later, Gabby delivered a healthy baby boy with lighter hair and features that seemed to blend both parents perfectly. "He's beautiful," Marcus said in wonder, cradling his son with the careful reverence of a first-time father. "William James Richardson," Gabby declared. "Will for short." As the immediate drama of delivery settled into the quiet joy of new parents bonding with their babies, the medical team began routine procedures that included blood typing for hospital records and newborn screening tests. "Congratulations to both families," Dr. Martinez said as she completed her examinations. "You have two healthy, beautiful babies who came into this world knowing they're surrounded by love. Thank you for making this such a positive experience," Abby said, cradling Bella while watching Gabby nurse Will. "Having our babies born together feels like completing a circle that started when we were born." "It's been an honor to be part of your family's story," Dr. Martinez replied. "The lab will have blood type results and newborn screening results back within a few hours, just for your records." What none of them realized was that those routine blood tests would reveal results that would shatter everything the Richardson family believed about their history and their relationships. As the evening settled into the peaceful exhaustion of new parenthood, both families basked in the joy of healthy babies and successful deliveries. Parents, grandparents, and extended family rotated through visits, marveling at how similar the cousins looked despite being born to different parents. "They could be siblings," their mother Patricia observed as she held both babies. "The family resemblance is so strong." "That's the Richardson genes," their father David added proudly. "Strong family genetics that skip generations and then show up full force." As the night deepened and the babies settled into their first sleep outside the womb, Abby and Gabby found themselves awake in their shared room, processing the magnitude of what they'd just experienced. "We did it," Gabby whispered. "We're mothers. We're mothers whose children will grow up together, just like we did." "Do you think they'll be as close as we are?" "I think they'll have the best possible start in life, born into a family that chooses love and support over everything else." What they didn't know was that by morning, laboratory results would force them to question everything they thought they knew about family, genetics, and the foundation of their identical twin bond. The peaceful night of new motherhood was about to become the beginning of the most challenging chapter of their lives together. Dr. Martinez entered Abby and Gabby's room the next morning with an expression that immediately put both new mothers on alert. Instead of her usual warm confidence, she carried herself with the careful manner of someone about to deliver news that would change lives forever. "Good morning, ladies. How are you and the babies feeling?" "We're doing well," Abby replied, though she noticed the doctor's hesitation. "Is everything okay with the newborn screening results?" "The babies are perfectly healthy, but I need to discuss something unusual with your blood typing results." Gabby shifted uncomfortably in her bed, instinctively pulling Will closer. "Unusual how?" Dr. Martinez pulled up chairs beside both beds, the kind of positioning that medical professionals used when conversations required careful attention and emotional support. "Your baby's blood types don't match what should be genetically possible given your family medical histories." "What do you mean?" Abby asked, her nursing background making her immediately understand that blood typing wasn't arbitrary but followed strict genetic rules. "Bella has type AB blood, and Will has type O blood. Based on your medical records, both of you are type A and your husbands are both type B. Is that a problem? Gabby asked, though her psychology training was already making her recognize the implications of genetic impossibilities. It's not medically problematic for the babies, but it's genetically impossible. Two type A parents cannot have a type AB child, and a type A mother with a type B father cannot have a type O child. The sisters exchanged glances, both understanding that Dr. Martinez was suggesting something that challenged the fundamental assumptions about their family genetics. Are you saying the tests were wrong? Abby asked. We ran the tests 3 times to be certain. The results are accurate. Then what are you saying? I'm saying that either your medical records contain incorrect information about your blood types, or the paternity information we have is incorrect. Gabby felt the world tilt as she processed the implications. Are you suggesting that our husbands aren't the fathers of our children? I'm suggesting that we need to verify everyone's blood types to understand what's happening here. But that's impossible. We were both faithful to our husbands throughout our pregnancies. I believe you completely, which is why I think we need to look at this from a different angle. Dr. Martinez's gentle tone couldn't soften the impact of what she said next. I'd like to test your blood types, your husband's blood types, and your parents' blood types. Sometimes medical records contain errors, or there are family genetic factors that weren't previously known. Over the next hour, blood samples were taken from everyone present. Jake and Marcus were confused but cooperative, trusting that medical testing would resolve whatever clerical error had created the confusion. David and Patricia Richardson seemed more nervous, though they attributed it to concern for their daughters and new grandchildren. The results will be available this afternoon, Dr. Martinez explained. Until then, try to rest and bond with your beautiful babies. Whatever we discover, it doesn't change the fact that you're both wonderful mothers with healthy children. But rest was impossible for Abby and Gabby, who spent the morning analyzing every aspect of their family medical history, trying to find explanations that would make sense of the impossible blood typing results. Maybe there was a mix-up in the lab, Gabby suggested as she watched Will sleep peacefully in her arms. Maybe, but Dr. Martinez said they ran the tests 3 times. Maybe our medical records were wrong about our own blood types. Both of us? With the same error. As the afternoon arrived, both women felt increasing anxiety about results that would either resolve the mystery or create even more questions about their family's genetic history. Dr. Martinez returned at 3 p.m. with lab results and an expression that suggested the mystery had been solved, but not in ways that would bring comfort. I have all the blood typing results, and I need to share information that will be difficult to process. Just tell us, Abby said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Your blood types are exactly what your medical records indicated. You're both type A. Your husbands are both type B, as expected. Then how? Your parents' blood types reveal the source of the genetic impossibility. Both women waited, holding their babies closer as they sensed that their world was about to be fundamentally altered. Your father David is type A, as expected. But your mother Patricia is type AB. How does that explain anything? Gabby asked. It explains everything. The genetic combinations that created you and your sister are different from what we assumed. Dr. Martinez pulled out a chart showing genetic inheritance patterns, her voice becoming more clinical as she explained science that would shatter their family. If David and Patricia were both your biological parents, with his type A blood and her type AB blood, you could both be type A as you are. But your children's blood types suggest a different genetic story. What kind of different genetic story? Bella's type AB blood indicates that one of her grandparents contributed genes that aren't present in David's genetic line. Will's type O blood indicates that one of his grandparents contributed type O genes that aren't present in Patricia's genetic line. The sisters stared at Dr. Martinez, understanding the words but refusing to accept their implications. What are you saying? I'm saying that the genetic evidence suggests you have different fathers. The words hit both women like physical blows. Gabby started crying immediately, while Abby went completely still, her mind racing through the implications. That's impossible. We're identical twins. You appear to be identical twins. But superfecundation, the fertilization of two eggs by two different fathers during the same menstrual cycle, is rare but genetically possible. Are you telling us that our mother had relations with two different men during the same cycle and that we're actually half-sisters? I'm telling you that the genetic evidence strongly suggests that possibility. A DNA test would provide definitive answers. Both women looked at their parents, who had been listening to this conversation with expressions that shifted from confusion to horror to something that looked like guilt. "Mom," Abby said quietly, "is there something you need to tell us?" Patricia Richardson, who had been silent throughout the medical explanation, began crying with the kind of deep, body-shaking sobs that suggested decades of buried secrets were finally demanding acknowledgement. "Patricia," David said, his voice carrying 30 years of marriage and trust, "what's happening here?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to come out. I never meant for anyone to know." "Know what?" Gabby asked, though part of her already understood. "Know that David isn't both your father." The confession that followed would destroy the foundation of everything the Richardson family had built together, but it would also explain the genetic impossibilities that had been revealed by two babies whose blood types told stories their family had never been prepared to hear. The women who had thought they were identical twins were about to discover they were half-sisters, products of a deception that had shaped 30 years of family relationships. The babies who were supposed to be cousins were about to become the key to unlocking secrets that would change the definition of family for everyone in that hospital room. The hospital room fell into a silence so complete that the only sounds were the mechanical beeping of monitors and Patricia Richardson's quiet sobbing. David stood frozen beside his wife's chair, 30 years of marriage suddenly feeling like a foundation built on quicksand. "Mom," Abby said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what are you saying exactly?" Patricia looked up at her daughters, the identical twins who had been the joy of her life and the daily reminder of her deepest secret, and realized that 28 years of carefully constructed lies were about to crumble. "I'm saying that one of you is David's daughter, and one of you is someone else's daughter." "Someone else's?" Gabby's voice cracked as she processed words that redefined her entire identity. "Who is someone else?" "Your father's brother. Your Uncle Michael." The revelation hit both women simultaneously. Michael Richardson, David's identical twin brother who had moved to Australia when the girls were young, who sent birthday cards and Christmas presents but had remained largely absent from their lives. Uncle Michael? Abby felt dizzy as she tried to reconcile this information with everything she'd believed about her family. "You had an affair with Dad's twin brother?" "It wasn't an affair. Not exactly. It was complicated." David found his voice, though it sounded hollow and strange. "Patricia, we need the whole truth. After 30 years, these girls deserve to know everything." Patricia took a shuddering breath and began the story that would explain how identical twins could have different fathers. "David and I had been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. We'd been through fertility treatments, medical consultations, everything. The doctors said there was no reason we couldn't conceive, but it just wasn't happening." "So you decided to sleep with his brother?" Gabby's psychology training made her recognize the defensive anger in her own voice. "Michael came to visit during what we now know was the cycle when you were conceived. David was traveling for work, a business trip that lasted 2 weeks. Michael stayed to keep me company. And you had an affair. We had one night together. One night when we were both lonely and grieving our own losses. Michael had just gone through a devastating divorce. I was feeling like a failure as a wife because I couldn't get pregnant. We comforted each other in a way that we both immediately regretted. But you got pregnant. 2 weeks later, when David returned from his trip, we reconnected. And apparently, I ovulated again during that cycle." Dr. Martinez, who had remained quietly present during this family revelation, spoke up to provide medical context. Superfecundation is rare, but it occurs when a woman releases multiple eggs during a single cycle and those eggs are fertilized by different partners within a short time frame. So you're telling us, Abby said slowly, that in the same month, you conceived one baby with Dad and one baby with Uncle Michael. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know until you were born and I saw that one of you looked exactly like David and one of you looked different. Similar enough that everyone assumed you were identical, but different enough that I suspected the truth. Which one of us looks like which father? Gabby asked, though part of her was afraid to know. Patricia looked at her daughters with the expression of a woman who had carried an unbearable secret for nearly 3 decades. Abby looks like David. The shape of her face, her expressions, even her temperament. Gabby looks like Michael. Her bone structure, her way of thinking, her analytical mind. Both women absorbed this information while looking at each other with new eyes, searching for differences they'd never noticed because they'd always assumed they were genetically identical. So I'm not Dad's daughter, Gabby said quietly. David raised you. David loved you. David is your father in every way that matters, Patricia said desperately. But not biologically. No, not biologically. David, who had been processing this revelation in stunned silence, finally spoke. Patricia, did you know when they were born? Did you know all these years which twin was mine biologically? I suspected, but I told myself it didn't matter because you loved them both equally, and they were both mine, and we were a family regardless of genetics. It mattered, David said quietly. It mattered because it was the truth, and I deserved to know the truth about my own family. Would you have loved Gabby less if you'd known? That's not the point. The point is that you made decisions about our family based on lies and deception. Abby, who had been holding Bella throughout this conversation, suddenly understood the implications for her own daughter. What does this mean for our children? What does this mean for Bella and Will's medical histories, their genetic risks, their family medical information? It means we need accurate family medical histories from both David and Michael, Dr. Martinez said gently. It means genetic counseling for both families to understand inherited health risks properly. It means, Gabby said, her voice breaking, that Abby and I aren't identical twins. We're half-sisters who happen to look similar. You're sisters, Patricia said firmly. Biology doesn't change the bond you've shared your entire lives. Biology changes everything, Abby replied. It changes our medical histories, our children's genetic inheritance, our understanding of who we are. Does it change how you feel about each other? Both women looked across the space between their hospital beds, seeing each other with new awareness of their complex relationship. I don't know, Gabby admitted. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about us, about our family was wrong. Not wrong. Incomplete. Mom, how could you keep this secret for 28 years? Abby asked. How could you watch us grow up believing we were identical twins when you knew we had different fathers? Because telling the truth would have destroyed our family. David would have left me, you girls would have been devastated, and for what? You were raised with love by 2 parents who adored you. We were raised with lies by parents who didn't trust us with the truth about our own identities. I was protecting our family. You were protecting yourself, Gabby said with the clinical precision of someone trained to recognize self-serving psychological patterns. David stood up suddenly, the weight of 30 years of deception finally overwhelming his ability to remain calm. I need some air. I need time to process this. David, please don't leave. We need to work through this together. Patricia, you had 28 years to work through this. You chose to keep lying instead. Now I need time to figure out what that means for our marriage and our family. As David left the room, both women understood that their mother's revelation had consequences that extended far beyond their own relationship. Their parents' marriage was now in crisis, their family structure was forever altered, and their children would grow up with genetic and medical histories that were completely different from what anyone had assumed. Does Uncle Michael know? Abby asked. No. I never told him. He moved to Australia 6 months after you were born, and we never spoke about that night again. So somewhere in Australia, there's a man who doesn't know he has a daughter and a grandson? Yes. And you were planning to take this secret to your grave? I was planning to protect the family I'd built, regardless of how it had been created. As the afternoon wore on and the immediate shock began to settle into processing, both women found themselves looking at their newborn children with new awareness of the complex genetic inheritance they represented. Bella carried genes from David, Abby, and Jake, a straightforward family lineage. Will carried genes from Michael, a man he'd never met, Gabby, and Marcus, a family lineage that included a grandfather on another continent who didn't know he existed. What happens now? Gabby asked as evening approached. Now we figure out how to be a family when the foundation of that family was built on deception, Abby replied. And we figure out whether the bond we've shared our entire lives is strong enough to survive learning that we're not who we thought we were. The question would determine not just their relationship as sisters, but the kind of family their children would grow up in and whether love could ultimately prove stronger than the secrets that had shaped their lives. 3 days after the revelation, Abby and Gabby sat in Gabby's living room while their babies napped, surrounded by the comfortable chaos of new motherhood but dealing with emotional turmoil that no parenting book had prepared them for. The silence between them felt different now, weighted with the knowledge that their identical twin bond had been redefined as a half-sister relationship built on decades of deception. I keep looking at you and trying to see Uncle Michael, Abby admitted, breaking the silence that had become increasingly common since leaving the hospital. I keep looking at you and trying to see Dad, Gabby replied. It's strange, isn't it? 28 years of assuming we were genetically identical, and now I'm searching your face for evidence of differences I never noticed. Do you see them? The differences? I see them now that I'm looking for them. Your jawline is more like Dad's. Your hands are shaped like his. Even the way you hold Bella is similar to how he held us in old photos. And you have Uncle Michael's eyes. I always thought we had identical eyes, but yours are slightly more angular. And your analytical mind, I always attributed that to us being twins, but maybe it came from him. They sat quietly, processing how genetic awareness was reshaping their understanding of themselves and each other. Gabby, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Okay. Are you angry that I'm Dad's biological daughter and you're not? Gabby considered the question that had been underlying every interaction since the hospital revelation. I'm not angry at you, but I am grieving the relationship I thought I had with Dad. For 28 years, I believed I was his daughter, not his niece. It changes how I understand our entire relationship. But he raised you. He loves you exactly the same way he loves me. Does he? We don't know that yet. We don't know how he's processing this news or how it might change his feelings about me. Dad isn't capable of loving you less because of genetics. People are capable of all kinds of reactions when their fundamental assumptions about family are challenged. As if summoned by their conversation, David Richardson knocked on the door and entered with the careful manner of someone navigating new and fragile family dynamics. Hi, girls. How are the babies? They're both sleeping, Abby replied. Dad, how are you? How are you and Mom doing? David sat in the chair across from his daughters, looking older than he had just 3 days earlier. Struggling. 30 years of marriage is a lot to reevaluate when you discover it was built on a fundamental deception. Are you going to leave her? Gabby asked directly, her psychology training making her comfortable with difficult questions. I don't know. I love your mother, but I also feel like I don't know her. How do you keep a secret like this for almost 3 decades? How do you watch me love and raise a child while knowing that child wasn't biologically mine? Because that child is yours, Abby said firmly. Biology doesn't determine fatherhood. Love and commitment do. I know that intellectually, but emotionally, I'm having to process that half my family history is different from what I believed. Dad, Gabby said quietly, Are you going to love me less now that you know I'm not biologically yours? David looked at his daughter, the child he'd raised, taught to drive, walked through heartbreaks and celebrations, and felt his heart break at the vulnerability in her question. Gabby, you are my daughter. You will always be my daughter. Dina doesn't change 28 years of loving you, being proud of you, worrying about you, celebrating your achievements. But it changes how you understand our relationship. It changes how I understand your mother's choices. It doesn't change how I feel about you. What about Will? How do you feel about him, knowing he's genetically your grandson but also your great-nephew? He's a beautiful baby who's part of our family regardless of complicated genetics. As they talked, both women realized that their father was processing his own identity crisis alongside theirs. Dad, we need to talk about Uncle Michael, Abby said. What about him? Gabby has a right to know her biological father. Will has a right to know his grandfather. And Michael has a right to know he has a daughter and grandson. David was quiet for a long moment, processing implications he hadn't considered. You want to contact Michael? I want the option to contact him, Gabby clarified. I want to know what kind of person he is, what his medical history looks like, whether he has other children that we should know about. And I want accurate genetic information for both our children, Abby added. We need complete family medical histories to give our pediatricians. Have you thought about what contacting Michael might do to our family dynamics? Our family dynamics are already completely altered, Gabby pointed out. The question is whether we're going to deal with this honestly or continue the pattern of secrets and deception. What does your mother think about contacting Michael? Mom doesn't get to make decisions about my relationship with my biological father, Gabby replied with unexpected firmness. She made her choices 28 years ago. Now I get to make mine. Fair enough. Do you want me to reach out to him, or do you want to contact him directly? I want to think about it more. But Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think he would want to know about me? About Will? Michael is a good man who made a mistake during a difficult time in his life. I think he would want to know, and I think he would want to be part of Will's life if you're open to that. Even though it would complicate everything? Our family is already complicated. The question is whether we're going to let complications divide us or find ways to love each other through them. That evening, after David left and their husbands had come home from work, Abby and Gabby found themselves discussing decisions that would affect not just their own lives but their children's futures. Marcus, how do you feel about the possibility of Will having a grandfather in Australia? Gabby asked her husband as they prepared dinner together. I feel like Will deserves to know his complete family history. If that includes a grandfather he's never met, then maybe it's time for introductions. Even if it's awkward and complicated? Especially if it's awkward and complicated. Family relationships are supposed to be worth working through difficult situations. Jake, Abby called to her husband, what do you think about all of this genetic revelation stuff? I think Bella is lucky to have a clear family lineage, and Will is lucky to potentially have even more people who love him. I think secrets damage families more than truth does. So you think we should contact Uncle Michael? I think Gabby should do whatever feels right for her and Will, and we should support whatever she decides. As both families settled into their evening routines, Gabby made a decision that would either expand their family or create new complications they weren't prepared for. I'm going to write to Michael, she announced. I'm going to tell him the truth and see how he responds. Are you sure? Abby asked. I'm sure that Will deserves to know his grandfather, and I deserve to know my biological father. I'm also sure that our family has had enough secrets. What will you say? I'll tell him the truth about what happened, about who I am, and about Will. Then I'll let him decide how much involvement he wants in our lives. And if he doesn't want any involvement? Then at least Will know I tried to connect him with his grandfather. And at least I'll know I chose honesty over the family pattern of deception. As Gabby began drafting a letter that would potentially transform their family dynamics once again, Both sisters understood that they were choosing courage over comfort, truth over simplicity, and authentic relationships over carefully maintained illusions. The decision to contact Michael would either heal the family fractures created by Patricia's revelation or create new challenges that would test everyone's capacity for love, forgiveness, and adaptation. But both women had learned that secrets were more dangerous to family relationships than difficult truths, and that their children deserved to grow up with honest information about their genetic heritage and family connections. 2 weeks after Gabby sent her letter to Australia, she received a phone call that would change everything. She was feeding Will when her phone rang with an international number she didn't recognize, though her heart began racing with the certainty of who might be calling. "Hello, Gabby? This is Michael Richardson. Your biological father." The words hung in the air between them, separated by thousands of miles but connected by genetics and circumstances neither had chosen. "Michael, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure if you would. I've been staring at your letter for 3 days, trying to process everything you told me. I have a daughter. I have a grandson. The mistake I made 30 years ago created a family I never knew existed. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Beyond overwhelming. Gabby, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you okay? I mean, finding out that the man you thought was your father isn't your biological father, how are you handling that?" The genuine concern in his voice touched something deep in Gabby's heart. This stranger who was genetically her father was asking about her emotional well-being with the instinctive protectiveness of a parent. "Some days I'm okay. Some days I feel like my entire identity was built on lies. Today is somewhere in between." "And your sister? Abby? How is she processing all of this?" "She's been incredible. Supportive, understanding, trying to help me navigate feelings I don't know how to handle." That speaks well of how David and Patricia raised you both, regardless of the complicated circumstances. "Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you regret what happened between you and Mom? Do you regret that I exist?" Michael was quiet for so long that Gabby wondered if the international connection had been lost. "Gabby, I regret the pain that my choices caused your family. I regret the deception that followed. But I could never regret that you exist. From what you've told me in your letter, you're an accomplished, caring woman who's raising a son and building a meaningful career. How could I regret that? Even though I'm the product of what you called a mistake? You're not the product of a mistake. You're the result of 2 people who made a poor decision during difficult times, but you yourself are a gift." As they talked, Gabby found herself studying her son's face, searching for resemblances to this man she'd never met but who had contributed half her genetic material. "Michael looks like you. At least, he looks like the photos I've seen of you when you were younger. Would you be comfortable sending photos? I'd love to see him. And you? I'd love to see what my daughter looks like." "I'd like that. But Michael, I need you to understand something." "What?" "David is my father. He raised me, loved me, supported me through everything important in my life. If you're going to be part of Will's life and mine, it has to be in addition to that relationship, not as a replacement for it. I wouldn't want to replace David. From everything I know about my brother, he's been an excellent father to you. I'd be honored to be an addition to your family, not a disruption to it." "And what about Mom? What about Patricia? Are you angry with her for not telling you about me?" "I'm processing my feelings about Patricia. I'm angry about the deception, but I also understand why she made the choices she made. We were all young and scared and trying to protect people we loved. Even if it meant lying for 30 years? Even then. Though I think all of us have learned that secrets cause more damage than truth." Their conversation continued for nearly an hour, covering everything from Will's developmental milestones to Gabby's career to Michael's life in Australia, where he'd built a successful architectural firm and remained unmarried after his divorce decades earlier. "Gabby, I have a confession." "What kind of confession?" "I've always wondered about that time with Patricia. I've always wondered if there might have been consequences. Part of me has been hoping for 30 years that someday I'd discover I had a child. Really? I never married again after my divorce. I never had children with anyone else. Finding out that I have a daughter and grandson feels like being given a family I'd given up hope of ever having. But we live on different continents. How do we build a relationship across that distance? The same way people build any meaningful relationship, slowly, honestly, with commitment to making it work despite obstacles. What would that look like practically? It would look like regular video calls so I can watch Will grow up. It would look like me planning trips to meet my grandson and spend time with my daughter. It would look like you and Will visiting Australia when he's old enough to travel. And it would look like us getting to know each other as people, not just as genetic relatives. Exactly. Gabby, I want to be clear about something. Okay. I'm not trying to insert myself into your life because I feel obligated. I'm asking to be part of your life because I genuinely want to know you and Will, and because I hope I might have something positive to contribute to your family. What kind of positive contribution? Support. Another person who's committed to Will's well-being and your happiness. Medical history information that might be important for his healthcare. And maybe, if I'm very lucky, the kind of relationship where my daughter feels comfortable calling me when she needs advice or support or just wants to talk. After they hung up, Gabby sat holding Will and processing the unexpected gift of a biological father who wanted to be part of their lives without disrupting the family relationships that were already precious to her. When Abby arrived later that afternoon, Gabby shared Michael's response and his desire to build genuine relationships with both of them. He wants to meet you too, she told her sister. He said that anyone who raised a daughter like you deserves his gratitude and respect, and that Will's aunt is as important to him as Will's mother. How do you feel about him wanting to be involved? Hopeful. Excited. Overwhelmed. All at the same time. And how do you think Dad will react to Michael wanting to visit? I think Dad will handle it with the same grace he's shown through this entire crisis. He'll put Will's needs and my happiness ahead of any personal discomfort. What about Mom? Mom will have to face the consequences of her choices. If Michael comes to visit, she'll have to confront the man she kept secrets from for 30 years. Are you ready for that level of family drama? I'm ready for that level of family honesty. We've all learned that secrets cause more problems than truth. That evening, Gabby video called Michael so he could meet Will for the first time. Watching her infant son interact with his grandfather through a screen thousands of miles away, she felt overwhelmed by the complexity and beauty of modern family relationships. He's perfect, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion as Will grabbed at the phone screen. He's absolutely perfect. He's going to grow up knowing his grandfather in Australia loves him, Gabby replied. And he's going to grow up in a family that chooses truth over comfort, which is the greatest gift anyone can give a child. As the video call ended and Gabby prepared Will for bedtime, she realized that her family had evolved from a foundation of secrets into something more complex but ultimately more honest and loving. The revelation that had shattered their assumptions about genetics and family had also created opportunities for connections they'd never imagined possible. Tomorrow, she would call David and Patricia to share Michael's response and begin planning for family visits that would either heal old wounds or create new challenges. But tonight, she felt grateful for the courage they'd all shown in choosing truth over deception and hopeful about the expanded family that Will would grow up knowing as his own. 6 months later, the Richardson family gathering looked nothing like the traditional family photos Patricia had carefully arranged for decades. In the living room of David and Patricia's house, 3 generations navigated relationships that defied conventional categories while 2 babies, now mobile and curious about everything, provided the perfect distraction from adult complexities. Michael Richardson sat on the floor beside his grandson Will, who was attempting to stack blocks with the determined concentration of a 9-month-old discovering cause and effect. Across the room, David watched his brother interact with the child they now understood was genetically Michael's grandson but emotionally both their family legacy. "He's got your analytical approach to problem solving," David observed as Will systematically tested different block combinations. "He's got the Richardson stubbornness," Michael replied with a smile that reminded everyone how much the brothers resembled each other despite 30 years of separation. "Remember how we used to spend hours building elaborate structures just to see if they'd work? I remember you being more patient with engineering challenges than I was." Apparently that's genetic. The casual acknowledgement of genetic inheritance no longer carried the emotional charge it had 6 months earlier. The family had slowly learned to discuss biology and genetics as interesting information rather than threatening revelations. Gabby entered from the kitchen carrying coffee for everyone, a routine that had developed during Michael's 2-week visit to meet his daughter and grandson properly. The initial awkwardness of their relationship had evolved into genuine affection based on shared interests and similar approaches to analyzing the world around them. "Dad called," she announced, using the term naturally to refer to David while making space for Michael's role as her biological father. "He and Mom will be here in an hour." "How are they doing?" Michael asked, referring to David and Patricia's ongoing efforts to rebuild their marriage after the revelation of her 30-year deception. "Better. Marriage counseling is helping them work through the trust issues. It's going to be a long process, but they're both committed to making it work." "I'm glad. They built something beautiful together, regardless of how it started." Abby emerged from the nursery where she'd been putting Bella down for a nap, settling beside her husband Jake, who was documenting this unusual family gathering with the appreciation of someone who understood he was witnessing something historically significant. "Bella's finally sleeping. I think having so many new people around has been overstimulating for both babies." "Speaking of stimulating," Gabby said, "Michael has something he wants to discuss with all of us." Michael shifted uncomfortably, clearly preparing to address a topic he'd been considering throughout his visit. "I've been thinking about relocating closer to you all." "Relocating from Australia?" Abby asked in surprise. "My architectural firm can operate internationally, and most of my work is done remotely anyway. I've been looking at opportunities to establish a U.S. office." "That's a major life change," Jake observed. "Are you sure you want to uproot your entire life to be closer to family you just met?" "I'm sure I want to be part of Will's life as he grows up. I'm sure I want to know my daughter better than video calls allow. And I'm sure that at 58, building relationships with family is more important than maintaining the comfortable isolation I've lived with for 30 years. "Where would you relocate?" Gabby asked, though her expression suggested she was both excited and nervous about the possibility. "I've been looking at opportunities about an hour from here. Close enough to be genuinely involved in Will's life, far enough away that I'm not disrupting the family dynamics you've all worked so hard to establish." "What about your life in Australia?" "What life? I have a successful business and no meaningful personal relationships. Here, I have a daughter, a grandson, and the possibility of being part of something larger than my professional achievements." As they discussed the practical implications of Michael's potential relocation, both babies demanded attention with the perfect timing that made serious adult conversations impossible to sustain for long periods. "Will's ready for lunch," Gabby announced as her son began expressing his opinions about hunger with increasing volume. "I'll help," Michael offered, a routine he'd established during his visit as he learned the basics of infant care that he'd missed with his own child. "You don't have to help with every meal," Gabby said gently. "You're visiting, not babysitting. I'm learning how to be a grandfather. That includes participating in daily care, not just the fun activities." Watching Michael feed Will while discussing architectural projects with the same analytical attention he brought to everything else, the family could see how naturally he'd integrated into their daily routines. When David and Patricia arrived, the atmosphere shifted subtly as the adults navigated emotional terrain that remained tender despite months of healing. "Michael," Patricia said quietly as she entered, their first face-to-face interaction since the hospital revelation 6 months earlier. "Patricia, you look well. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being so understanding about everything. We all made choices 30 years ago that seemed right at the time. The important thing is how we handle the consequences now." David embraced his brother with the complicated affection of someone processing forgiveness alongside family loyalty. "How are you finding fatherhood?" he asked with a slight smile. "Exhausting, overwhelming, and completely wonderful. How did you manage it with twins?" "Carefully, and with a lot of help from Patricia." As the afternoon progressed into evening, 3 generations of Richardsons navigated relationships that challenged traditional family categories while creating new definitions of what family could look like when built on honesty, commitment, and the willingness to adapt to complicated circumstances. "I have an announcement," Patricia said as they prepared dinner together, a collaboration that had become easier as they'd all learned to work around the emotional complexity of their relationships. "What kind of announcement?" Abby asked. "David and I have decided to renew our wedding vows. We want to recommit to our marriage with complete honesty about our family history and our commitment to each other despite the mistakes we've both made." "That's wonderful," Gabby said, genuinely moved by her parents' decision to rebuild rather than abandon their relationship. "We'd like all of you to be there. Michael, we'd especially like you to be part of the ceremony." "Me? Why?" "Because you're part of our family now. Because Will deserves to see his grandfather participating in family celebrations. Because we want to acknowledge that our family includes everyone who's committed to loving and supporting each other." "I'd be honored." 6 months later, David and Patricia's vow renewal ceremony took place in the same garden where they'd been married 32 years earlier, but this time their wedding party included not just Abby and Gabby, but also Michael, Jake, Marcus, and 2 babies who provided soundtrack commentary throughout the ceremony. 32 years ago, David said in his vows, "we promised to love each other for better or worse. We've learned that worse can include deception and broken trust, but we've also learned that love can survive anything when people are committed to truth, forgiveness, and growth." 32 years ago, Patricia replied, "I promised to honor and cherish you. I broke that promise through deception, but I'm making it again today with complete honesty about who I am, what I've done, and my commitment to earning back the trust one damaged." As they exchanged renewed vows, their family bore witness to the possibility of rebuilding relationships after devastating revelations, of choosing love over convenience, and of creating family structures that honored both genetic connections and chosen commitments. Will and Bella, now walking toddlers who had no understanding of the complicated history that had shaped their family, played contentedly among adults who had learned that the strongest families are often the ones that face the hardest truths together. "Look at them," Michael said, watching the children explore the garden party with fearless curiosity. "They'll grow up knowing that family is about love and commitment, not just genetics," Gabby observed. "They'll grow up knowing that truth is more important than comfort," Abby added. "And they'll grow up knowing that even when families face impossible challenges, love can find ways to heal and grow stronger." As the celebration continued into the evening, for adults who had learned to be parents, partners, and family members in ways none of them had expected, watch their children play together while understanding that they had created something beautiful from circumstances that had initially felt devastating. The family secret that had shattered their assumptions about genetics and relationships had ultimately created opportunities for deeper connections, more honest relationships, and a family structure that proved love could transcend biology when people were brave enough to choose truth over convenient deception. Their story had become proof that the most resilient families are often the ones built through courage, forgiveness, and the willingness to redefine what family means when traditional categories prove inadequate for the complex realities of human love and connection.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.